My name is Avital. I'm 21 years old and I'm studying English literature. And this is my grandfather. I call him Saba, which is Hebrew for grandfather. And the reason that I'm so interested in participating in this project is because growing up as the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, I never felt that these stories that I hear are stories, because for me they're part of who I am, they're part of where my family comes from. And I think that this project allows us to transmit those stories, and I'm so proud to be a part of that, and to be a part of this project generation to generation. And also, more than that, I feel really proud of my grandfather, and his story has instilled my life with so much purpose and meaning, so I'm very proud of him. And Saba, do you want to introduce yourself?
Vice versa.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Yisrael Abelesz. I was born in Hungary. I was deported to Auschwitz in July 1944. Survived. I've returned to Hungary. And I stayed in Hungary for 4 years until 1949. And in 1949, I have decided to leave the country. I got out, crossed the border to Austria. From Austria, I was given a visa to come to England, and I live in England since 1949.
When I think about my grandfather's story, he was 14 years old when he was deported to Auschwitz, and I just turned 21 last week, and it's incredible and terrifying to think how I would have coped with the situations that my grandfather faced, because what do my friends and I, what do we speak about, the challenges we face and the discussions that we have, it's just not comparable. And I'm so astounded that my grandfather is able to speak about his experiences today. Saba, would you like to talk about your childhood growing up in Kapuvar?
Yeah. I was born in a little place called Kapuvar, which has got about 10,000 inhabitants. Out of the 10,000 inhabitants, the Jewish community consisted about 500 souls. My parents, my father was a businessman. He had a grocery wholesale business, and we lived in a reasonable, comfortable life. We were not very rich, we were not counted, and the comforts and the standard of life what people have got now, there was not. For instance, we have no hot water, there's no internal toilet, but as far anything else, as far as the food is concerned, was excellent. We had a very, very good food. In fact, it's better than anything this country can provide. Hungarian food is excellent. And I went to a Jewish state school, it was called, because all the schools were provided by the different religions, Roman Catholic, Jewish, Protestants, and were all paid by the state. And the curriculum has to be provided also by the state. Because of that, it was very restricted. Jewish studies were very limited for about 2-3 hours a week, and it was not sufficient for the more Orthodox people. And parallel, that's why it was established a proper Jewish cheder, what is called, to learn intensive Jewish studies. And we have partly, from 8 to 9 we went to cheder, from 9 to 12 it was a school, and then was a short break, and then afterwards we stayed in the cheder till about 5 or 6 o'clock.
So Saba, how did you feel about your Hungarian and Jewish identity?
Oh, that was a real problem for my childhood, because we had two contradictory agenda from the cheder, the Jewish subject, and the school, which was, though it was so-called Jewish school, but it was very secular, very Hungarian. We had the same curriculum that all the Hungarians. We were taught about extreme Hungarian nationalism. Hungary was always a chauvinist state. He didn't like all the neighbors, especially not after the First World War, when Hungary was chopped up, and only the middle of Hungary was left to Hungary. So Hungarians lived under a great felt very unjust, and all our, even in the prayers, after the Jewish prayers, we said the Hungarian prayers, which said we believe in divine justice and we believe in the resurrection of great Hungary. Amen. So we were on the school, we were just waiting and hoping that Hungary will get back the territories which were robbed from us. And on the Jewish school, the cheder was quite a different. We are not talking about what injustice was done to the Hungarian people. We were talking about what happened to the Jewish people. We originally came from the land of Israel. We were dispersed among the nations, and as history knows, we had a lot of persecutions, and we are still here, and we are loyal to our religion, and that's what we live. In the school, when I was younger, I didn't felt contradiction. I was very proud that I'm a Hungarian Orthodox Jew. Both identity of mine, I was very proud. Later on, in the late 30s, when I was about 7, 8 years old, I felt that anti-Semitism started getting hold of Hungary because of they allied with Hitler. Hitler promised, and he gave back, Hitler and Mussolini, the Axis countries, has given back to Hungary part of their territories, and everybody was very happy, and we were also very happy that Hungary start getting back to the old way how it was. But at the same time, there's anti-Semitism started, and then I felt that I'm not really a Hungarian. And later on was it confirmed more and more. By the time I was 8 and 9, I disillusioned completely from Hungarian nationalism. I was more regarded myself as Jewish.
So can you tell me about the people in the photos, your family?
6 of us were siblings. In this photo, there are 4 of us, myself here, and my younger brother, my sister, and my oldest brother. There are 5 of us, 5 boys and 1 girl. And that's my mother, my late mother. I was a 5th, and though, as being the 5th boys, and things were not all that great, we were always, I was resented at always getting hand off from my oldest siblings, from my older brothers. I remember that very clearly.
And this is you when
this is myself after the war. These are my parents.
Mm-hmm. So these are both after the war?
Both of them are after the war. This is earlier. This must have been when I was 16. I was learning in a yeshiva in Hungary. This is just before I came to England when I was 18.
Mm-hmm. A yeshiva, it's a house of study for Talmudic texts.
Intensive Jewish Talmudical studies. That's what I was sent. When I got back out, so we are not after the war. I'm not talking after the war. I'm talking about my childhood.
Okay, so can you tell me about the progression of events from invasion in March 1944 to
First,
July 1944?
I want to tell you, our way of life was a very normal and happy life. We haven't had direct anti-Semitism from my surroundings, though we haven't had much contact with the non-Jewish population. But my parents, as they were in business, they had very good friends, very good relations. Anti-Semitism was hardly felt when in my childhood. And things started getting harder during the war years especially in 1941 onwards. 1941 was a year when the Germans had attacked the Soviet Union, and Hungary became a partner with Hitler. That's why Hungary and the government and the politics drifted towards Hitler's idea. Hitler wanted immediately, by 1941, we knew that what went on in Poland under the German occupation, what a persecution the Jews suffered, but we were comparatively safe. We felt safe because Hungarians didn't want to follow the Germans as far as the Jewish question. Our situation as Hungarian Jews has deteriorated substantially from 1941 onwards.
So when did your personal experience?
My personal experience, my personal experience was not much different. But for instance, my oldest brother, who was 20 at that time, they were has to be called into the Hungarian labor service, because that was the deal that the Hungarian people on military age, Hungary was fully mobilized and fighting on the Ukrainian front, and the Jews were not taken to the army because they were not trusted, but they had to carry on labor service. The labor service itself, as long as they stayed in Hungary, was not so terrible, because it's just laboring within the frame of the Hungarian army. But the problem was, as the front has progressed, the German-Hungarian troops were occupying a good part of the Soviet Union, and the Jewish labor service were taken out to the Russian front, which was completely was subjugated to the army, to the Hungarian army and to the German army, and a lot of atrocities was carried out against the people who were served on the labor services. No food, no proper food, frost, it was in the winter, and to be sent to the Russian front was almost regarded as a death sentence, or at least close to it.
And that's what happened to your older brother?
That's my older brother. I've noticed it. I didn't know why it's disappeared. And yes, I haven't seen him for 6 months, and no question were asked where he is. All I found out later on that he was pretending to be mental patient, and he was in a mental hospital because and they were not enlisted, and that's why he dodged the enlistment to the Hungarian labor force.
So when Hungary was invaded in March 1944,
March 1944, when Hungary was invaded by the Germans, the reason was Hungary by that time, by 1944, situation was not going well for the Germans. That was after Stalingrad, where the Soviet army has pushed out the Germans, Hungarian, a lot of losses of life, and Horthy, the regent of Hungary, decided he wanted to get out of the war, the same as Italians and the Romanians. They realized that this partnership with Hitler doesn't lead to anywhere. And then, while he was has called to a discussion with Hitler, the German army has invaded Hungary in one day, on a Sunday. I remember the tanks and the motorized went through our village, and we were really shocked. We are now under the Germans. While we under the Hungarians, whatever prosecution and restriction we suffered, we realized that we are still at home, and we are Hungarian citizens. Because Horthy kept on repeating, the Jewish question will be solved in a human Hungarian way. I don't know whether it's not contradictory, but he thought it is not. But then we realized that the same fate as it happened to the Jews, to the surrounding countries which are under German occupation, like Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Ukraine, the same thing is going to happen. And it did happen. The first thing was 19th of March was the occupation. By the 4th of April came out that all the Hungarian Jewish people from the age of 6 onward has to wear a yellow star. There were restricted shops. Simply they they sealed my father's shops, and even to going in the streets were even restricted during certain hours of the day. And we were sitting there. We didn't know what's happening in other part of Hungary, but we were in a terrible panic and fear. But we didn't know there was nothing what we can do. There was nowhere to run. Hungary was surrounded by German occupied territories. We just had to sit back and wait what is going to happen.
And then what happened about ghettoization?
What happened started, the Jewish community has been dissolved as a community as such, and they were appointed a commissar who was supervising the Jews, and the Jewish community has to prepare the list and the address of all the Jewish people in the town. Furthermore, the Jewish population, which were in different, away from their center, they had to move into the certain Jewish houses. So in our house, we were in the center, another family had to move in, which was not, that itself was not a great disaster, but we felt this is a preparation of what is going to come. And it came. It came on the 18th of June, which was a Sunday. We knew about it because by Saturday went rumors went around that strange gendarmes had moved into Kapuvar, because that was their policy. Not the local police was carrying out the deportations. They're always from a different area because they assumed, the German authorities, that the Jewish people are friendly with the local gendarme. So always strange people, strangers in. And at night we were just prepared, or whatever we can carry, we carry with ourselves. And 6 o'clock, knock on the door. The Hungarian gendarme moved in and says everybody has to be out, joining. Take only as much as you can carry. You can take some food, some clothing, whatever you can carry, and you go out in the middle of the road. When we went out, we already saw the Jewish population were ready for moving somewhere. And this is a time where there was an incident when I wrote a card to my two brothers. My two brothers at that time, they were in the Hungarian labor service, because by 1944, as far as the labor service was eased up, because they were not taken to Russia, because there was no Russian front anymore. So it was safer to be in the labor service than stay at home. So my two oldest brothers were enlisted, and I knew their address, and I wrote them a card: we are going to take them away. We don't know where, and God should be with us. And I wanted, as I was waiting in the middle of the road, I wanted to put in the letterbox this postcard, and a gendarme said, "Where do you think you are going? You have to say it." I said, I just want to post this. Give it to me, I will post it. He did post it, because my brother got it. So we were taking a short journey from Kapuvar to Sopron. Sopron was the largest city in the area, and there were all the people from the surrounding villages were all taken there. Later on, the Jewish population of Sopron were also taken in that camp, which you call it. I don't know what you call it, because it was not a proper camp. It was really a brick field, which was hardly any buildings on it, and some people had to sleep on the open, and there was communal kitchen put up, and no facilities, for hardly any sanitary facilities, and it was really terrible. A week before we were at home, we had that Saturday before we were taken. We had a normal Saturday, like we have it, like we had it before and afterwards, what people are having here, with Sabbath meals and everything. And suddenly we are in a horrible situation. But that situation didn't last long. It lasted only about 2 weeks in the Sopron, in the brick fields. After 2 weeks, a list has been prepared where 80 persons should be in one group per 80. That means that 80 people were put in one of the cattle wagons, and I remember my father was one of the commandant of that wagon. They were threatened that they have to be responsible for the people should not escape from the wagons. Not that was easy to escape because it was locked. It was just a small window for light, and was water. Put on some water, and also there was something to do your needs in the corner. It was terrible, the journey. It lasted about 4 days.
And then you arrived in Auschwitz. What happened when you arrived?
I followed. I could see, especially at night, you could see the name of the towns where we are passing to the stations, and I noticed
this is when you were on the train.
In the train, I can see it. I was very eager what's going on. And I saw, of course, we went back to Budapest. That's from west to east. And then going from Budapest to the north, crossing Czechoslovakia and in Poland. And Poland, we went again towards the west. And I noticed it Saturday evening. That was the 5th of July when we were put in the wagon, and we arrived in our destination on the 8th, which was a Saturday. In the morning, in the night, Friday evening, we noticed it. We are going through a very big city, shunting from one station to the other. That was Krakow. But we went a bit further, and then we stopped on Saturday morning, and then they opened up the doors, and we haven't seen any more Hungarian General Army, only the assessment surrounding our house, everybody out. You don't take anything with you, because we had something with us, a bit of food, a bit of change of clothing. He said, no, just leave everything here, it will be distributed afterwards. That was one of the deceit which the Germans carried out. And people should line five people. Men should line up separately, and the women separately. Women and the children should go with the women. So we were 4 people. My parents were on the wagon, and 4 of the siblings. My older sister, an older brother, and a younger brother. 4 of us. So it was everything very rushed, and my younger brother asked me, so where shall I go? I said, you are 11-year-old, you go with your mother. That's what they say. So he went with our mother and sister. My sister was, I think, about 20 years old. I was 14. And also my older brother, who was 16 and a half. So 3 of us found ourselves in front of a German officer, very smartly dressed, polished, leather coat and leather boots, and just looked at 3 of us were there. So my father and my older brother and myself. He asked me, "Wo alt bist du? How old are you?" So I said, "I'm 14. I spoke a little bit German, so I understand what he asked, and I answered, "I'm 14, and it just now was my birthday." So he gave me a big smile. Geburtstag, birthday, very good, sehr good. That was when I said to him that I got my birthday, and he waved myself and my brother to one side. My father wants to follow us, but he said, no, you go the other way. That's why. So last time my father, and also my younger brother and my mother. Well, it's well known what happened to those people who were not taken into the camps. They were immediately sent to the gas chambers.
When you got off the train, I understand that was a very quick progression from when you got off the train till when you met Mengele. How did you feel? How quick do you think it was?
I was like everybody else. We were in a daze. After being in a locked up wagon and now coming out to the bright sunshine, and immediately we have to stand up and being sorted out. My impression was, it's a very interesting point, they provided water to everybody before they started the selection. You could get, I managed to get, so they were distributing some water, which was very good to relax, but people should get relaxed, shouldn't get in panic. But we were not we had food with us. There was no shortage of food, and even water was in the train. There's not like some people who suffered. Anyway, we got off from the train, and immediately we had to stand up. They called out. We have to stand men separately and women and children separately. I said, this is all right. We are going to. I can see everywhere the barbed wire. It's a camp, so we'll be sorted out, sent in different barracks, different camp. And I didn't realize it, that when my parents and my younger brother has been separated from me, that this is the end. I'm not going to see them anymore.
When did you find out?
A bit later, a few weeks later, in the camp.
And you believed it?
Well, I didn't want to believe it, but that's. They don't exist anymore. They were burned. They were suffocated in the gas chambers, and their bodies were burned. I didn't believe it. I thought they are just making us to hurt us. But later on, gradually, I saw during the day, the smoke came out from the gas chambers. There are 4 different. From the crematoriums, the chimneys came out. Also at night. At night, flames were out. There was so much. I didn't realize what was it, but later I found out, because the 4 crematoriums couldn't cope. Well, they could. The gassing was quite easy, but the disposal of the bodies, that was a problem. So they digged pits to burn the bodies, and that was as the flame came out from the bodies at night, and then we realized it also the smell of burning flesh. But let's go back what happened to me.
So when you were chosen to go to when Mengele said it's your birthday, what happened after that?
As the group, we were taken to a shower, and the hair were shaved off from people, and hot water came. They distributed some soap, and we had to leave our clothing there, and accept the shoes. And we were given blue and white striped prisoners' clothing, jackets and trousers, and also a cloth cap. And we were taken to a barrack just very nearby. The barrack was a huge barrack. It could contain at least about 1,000 people, especially when there was no bunks or anything. Just on the plain floor, on the concrete floor, we had to sleep for a few days until some of the people who were in the barracks, they were taken away. You see, the same way as transport came, and the people who were regarded as suitable for work, they were taken into the camp, and for the camp they were distributed in groups. I was always left behind. I realized that by that time I want to get away from here, because this is a hell in earth. What they are killing here people. Everybody who arrives here, I was told they were going into the gas chambers. I want to get out of here, but unfortunately, so Mengele regarded me as I was capable to work, but when it came to take me to work, I was left behind, and quite a group of people, youngsters and elderly people who got into the camp, over 50s. They were not taken away from to work.
So
we were started getting worried. What's going to happen to us? They are not going to keep. We don't have to go to work. I will tell you later what was the daily routine, but no work. We don't have to go to work unless you volunteer for some local work. They called out if people wants to go cover something, potato field, something to pick up potatoes or putting it away. That kind of work, but it was nothing, no substantial work. We are just kept there. Sleeping. Later on, when the people were taken away from the barrack, was more space. You could sit, you could lay down on the concrete. I woken up in the morning, 6 o'clock. with a hot coffee. It's called coffee, but it was, of course, I don't know from what is it made.
Ersatz coffee.
Ersatz coffee. Call it in
coffee.
German. Yeah, Ersatz.
So,
it was not even
so
coffee.
this is your average typical day.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you now. Coffee in the morning, again, nothing to do until lunchtime. Lunchtime they brought the soup in 100 liter of barrels, and everybody got according, and there were bowls, all kind of size, from 3 liters to 5 or 6 liters, and according to the bowls which you carried, they gave you every ladle full of soup. So when you are 3 people, then when you got a bowl which is suits for 3 people, then give 3, and then you got 5. No spoons, not even, you cannot even, they won't even give us a spoon to eat it. So you have to drink it one after the other. But it was, anyway, I couldn't drink it in the first week because it was such a horrible, bitter tasting. In the evening was bread. The bread was edible. It was 250 grams per person, and something on top of it, Zuschlag they called it. It could be honey or cheese or salami, something like that. My brother didn't eat anything which is meaty. It was not kosher, so always said, you can eat it, you are young. So I had this portion of salami, but he kept himself from eating non-kosher food. Mm-hmm. Just the vegetable, the bread, and that's it.
And how did it work with roll call?
And in the afternoon was every day a roll call, a pail is called. Then we counted us, you have to stand up per 5, and then we saw, that's the only time we saw an assessment. Otherwise, during the whole day, there was no assessment in the camps. The camp was run by the prisoners themselves. Of course, the prominent prisoners, they called the Blockeltester, block leaders, and the top of it was Lagereltester, the one who was at the top of the camp. They were all prisoners. Most of the leaderships, they were non-Jewish. There were different triangles that were on their uniform. The green was criminals, usually murderers or similar crimes, and there was red triangle, which was political prisoners. Political, it means any opponent of the Hitler regime. It could be communist, Christians, socialists, liberal. They were usually the political prisoners. They were more decent. We were always afraid from the green, the criminals. And there was also a pink that was for homosexual. I didn't realize it was homosexual, but that's what it was.
And Jews, what color did
Jews
you wear?
were the yellow. I haven't, at that time for us, we didn't give us any. These were given only for people who were in the camp for years.
And what about were you tattooed?
That was given to me in December.
Do you want to show? What number is it?
B14775. That's my number, which I carry with now for the last 72 years. Or is it? Yeah, 72.
So when were you given your number? If this is.
Yeah, well, I said, let's go in chronological order. So we were in the camp. The number was given only later. And we had confirmation about the gas chambers on the, I think it was on the 2nd of August. We were there already for nearly a month. The part of the camp where we were, one side of the camp, there were barracks on like a road. Both sides are a row of barracks, and one side of the barracks were a gypsy camp. The gypsy families there, and the other side was a Jewish camp. And one day the Germans decided that the gypsies who were there, they were cleared and they were taken to the gas chamber. So it was night.
When was this, Saba?
I think, if I'm correct, I think August, the beginning of August. August the 2nd, August the 3rd. The gypsies using this date as their Holocaust day, because that was in Auschwitz when the gypsy camp has been liquidated. Then we realized that it's only a matter of time when our turn is going to come, because not many transports came. The transport became rarer, and the Lodge ghetto was liquidated at that time, and there came from Italy, from France, from Greece, Greek island roads, came some transports, but nothing as much. What we have noticed that Budapest, there was a concentration. About a third of the Hungarian Jewish population could be like up to 300,000 people lived in Budapest. They never came to Auschwitz. That was a relief for us, that the Budapest Jews are saved. That's a separate story how they managed to survive, the Jews in Budapest. As far as we were concerned, we lived like that in the summer. The whole summer was past. I should mention that we had a pair of tefillin, which we put on, Jewish men put in every day. And there was one pair there, and people were queuing up to put it on and to say the prayers. And then the next one, they were from early morning till midday, there was a queue for putting on the tefillin. You wanted to ask me how I managed to keep my sanity and hope for survival in these circumstances. I realized it in the middle of 1944 that the war is coming to end within a few months, because we somehow got in the camps news what's happening in the outside world. We knew about the landing in France came when we were in the ghetto, still in Hungary. And we knew that Paris has fallen, and we know that Romania got out of the war. I remember this, we heard on the camp, because some people had some connection with workers who came into the camp. So we knew even the attempt on Hitler's life, which was on the 20th of July, we knew about it, and also that he survived. But we were waiting with apprehension, what's going to happen with us. We were in the camp now for 3 months, and all the people who were able to work, they were taken away for the camps. All what is left, looking around, the rejects, small people who are not capable to work, and we haven't done any work in the camp, and we realized the Germans are not going to keep us just to feed us and not doing any work if we are unsuited to work. The answer came soon, in the end of the summer, in September.
This is Jewish New Year.
Jewish New Year, the day before the New Year. In the morning, they said the whole camp, everybody has to assemble in the plaza of the camp, which was a square in the bottom, in the end of the camp, and everybody went there. And they said, all these children, because we were regarded as children, they are going to go to the children's camp, and they will have a much better life there. That's what they were told to tell us, all the couples and our. I didn't believe it. Even at that time, I didn't realize it. I didn't believe it. I knew that there's no such a thing in Auschwitz like children's camp. All those children who are not suitable for work, they are going to the same fate as their parents. So as soon as I was selected to go with the children, I just I done a runner in the camp, and I ran to the other side, which were selected, and I got away with it.
And no one saw you?
No, I don't know whether saw, but nobody done anything about it. Just done it in a subtle way. And the people who were selected, they were taken to 2 barracks, and they were sealed the barracks, and after 2 days they were taken away by lorries to the gas chambers.
How do you know? You heard this after, or?
I heard it after, and I knew that. I heard it when they were taken, all the noise and the crying and everything. And that was during the day. This was a very famous story of somebody was a rabbi who managed to get a shofar.
A shofar is a ram's horn.
A ram's horn, which they blow it in New Year's Day, and it got permission from the local testers that they should be able to blow the shofar, because it's a very important point also in the Jewish calendar.
So the children who were locked in the barracks could hear it.
They hear it the last chauffeur in their life. It was very sad. My uncle who came into the camp, I had an uncle, also disappeared on that day. He was also taken away. But on the other hand, for poor selfish reasons, once they were taken away, we felt a relief. All right, it's over, and we are the survivors, so we survived. I had a very strong determination that I'm going to survive. Beside my brother, Moshe, who was with me all the time, he gave me encouragement, not for me and for others, that we are going to survive. We should have what we call in Hebrew bitachon. It means faith. Faith in our religion, faith in God is going to have mercy on us, and faith in ourselves. And I was grown up very quickly. I became an adult in that sense that I knew how to avoid, two things first. The first important, how to avoid the gas chamber. They shouldn't be taken. There's nothing what I can do. It's just sort of hiding or something like that. And also get some extra food. Extra food was solved. I had a friend from Kapuvar who was working in the kitchen. My brother also took him into work in the camp kitchen, and he managed to smuggle out some extra food for us. So managed as far as I was not starving. I was always hungry. I mean, for instance, I took a point, you see, when those barrels, the wooden barrels which are distributed the soup, had to be taken back to the camp by the prisoners. So I always volunteered to take back the empty barrels, and while I was carrying it a few hundred yards, I put my hands in deep and scoop out whatever left over in the bottom.
Because it was more solid in the bottom.
And that was more solid in the bottom. That was a great thing. Except the sleeve of my jacket became very hardened from the dried food, dried soup. So the same thing what happened, this selection, it was repeated itself on the day before Yom Kippur. That was already harder. That was the velvet gloves came off. They didn't tell us stories that they are going to the children's camp, because people who survived the first selection didn't believe it.
So Rosh Hashanah, and then 10 days later.
10 days later was Yom Kippur,
which is the Day of Atonement.
That was the day before Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. That was the second selection. That was already hard. Again, I was selected, and I tried to do the same trick like as the first selection, so run away from there. But the Lagereltester noticed it that I'm running away. He sent one of his subordinates, go and get that boy. And he got after me, and he got hold of me, and he said to me in Yiddish, "Läufe weg from me, run away from me." So I started to struggle, and he let me go. Let me go, and I just look around, where can I run where they don't find me? And I saw in front of their barracks there was Russian prisoners of war. They were assembled in front of their barracks, and I ran among them. And the Lagereltester, when he noticed it, that I got out from the hand of his capo, he ran after me himself, but the Russian prisoners of war, they told him, "No, you don't get into my barrack. If you come into our barrack, you won't come out alive." So the Russian prisoners of war saved my life. They let me stay in the barrack until it was dark, and it was all quietened down, and I managed to creep back to my barrack, where my brother thought that I was lost in the selection, because the selection was over, and I'm nowhere to be found. And when he saw me, he said I came back from the other world. That was the second selection. And then I realized another thing, that the selection comes during the day, and if I volunteer to do some work outside the camp, then I won't be the subject of the selection. So from that time, I volunteered every day. When I was called, who wants to come to do some work, I volunteered. And I managed the third selection. I was not in the camp, so I didn't know what happened. All I know that more people has disappeared.
At some point when you were in Auschwitz, you were in the hospital.
Oh yes, that came about after the autumn. Then they suddenly stopped the gassing. Then came the order that Auschwitz will be soon evacuated.
How did you know that the gassing had stopped?
Either that's what it came out in the camp. We knew about the camp because we had to start demolishing the gas chambers. In fact, I was working in pushing the carts to take away the rubble from the demolished crematorium to Earthfield. That was part of my job. And also our superiors told us, no, it's easing, no more gassing, his life is going to be much better. And in fact, it was an improvement in the food and everything. So we realized that the Auschwitz scene comes to an end. Auschwitz is going to close down. And first that was a revolution, also the same time. I don't know whether it has coincided with the order of demolishing the gas chambers, but it was a revolution in Auschwitz, where the people who were working on the disposal of the bodies, they have revolted and they've killed some German officer, and they blown up one of the gas chambers. But it was a relief. It felt a relief in the air. That thing. Also, the food became better.
How was the food better?
I think they were given extra. The portions were bigger, and we got some extra things. I don't know. On Sunday we had something a kind of pasta, which was very unusual. Anyway, the food I was not too much worried about the food. My main concern was to avoid getting to the gas chambers. Food I managed to get from the kitchen, you know. But suddenly, one day I woke up, I felt I had a temperature. And the temperature got stronger and stronger. I don't know what was wrong with me, because I felt quite in a good health. I was not run down or anything like that. I managed to run much better than I can run now. And I had to report to because during the day you cannot stay in the barracks. That was part of the regulations. But if you are ill, then you can stay in the barrack for 3 days. Afterwards, you have to. The doctor will send you to the hospital. In Auschwitz, there was a hospital which never had a good reputation, because we knew that the hospital was just for a show. If some from the Red Cross or anybody is going to visit the camp, they will show that there's a hospital there is operations, there's doctors, medicines, everything. But we knew once, that's what we heard, once the hospital will get full, then they take all the patients to the gas chambers and dispose of them. And then next day they got new admissions. So when I was sent in the hospital, I had a bit of apprehension. I was not sure whether this gassing has stopped. And my brother, then I parted from my brother. My brother Moshe was all the time with me, and he gave me encouragement in every way. And he said to me, if you are not going to take to the gas chambers, you should know what to say. Your last word, you should be the Shema. And I remember I cried out, I don't want to die. I want to live, and I want to serve God by living. I don't want to die for Kiddush Hashem. I want to live.
Kiddush Hashem is the sanctification of God's name.
Yeah, and but he never came to. They took us. I went to a general ward, which was horrible. It was smelly, and all kind of people with diarrhea and everything were there. Luckily, I was when I came to the doctor. I didn't know, only I found out later that they're suspecting that I got typhoid. Which really, they took blood, and later on it's been confirmed that I got typhoid, and they took me to the isolation barrack. Before the people who got infectious diseases, they were there. And what was really very good there was a separate bunk beds, one up and one lower, and it was quiet and clean. The food was also quite good, and it was really a relaxing atmosphere. And I stayed in that hospital right to the liberation. And that is just one day they gave us a number while I was in the hospital. This was one of the last numbers who were given in Auschwitz, because Auschwitz was liquidated a month later. That was the middle of December, and we knew that soon Auschwitz, we have to move from here. So I remember we got together, boys of my age who was in the camp, who was in the hospital, in the barrack, and I said to them, 3 things can happen. Either they will kill us before the liberation, they won't leave anybody living witnesses, or they will take us away, or they will just move away and we will be liberated. One of the 3 things can happen. So by the middle of January, I felt I don't want to stay in the hospital. I was quite all right in the hospital, and I made myself useful for the doctors. I helped nursing out giving the medication to the patients. And I said to the doctor, I want to get out of the camp. Because he said, if you want, you can stay here, because we have no new admissions. There's no pressure in the hospital, so we can stay here. You are not a what they call it now, bed blockers. That's what it's called in the National Health Service. You just don't have to go in the hospital, so they can stay here. But I said, no, I don't want. I want to go back to the camp. So I was given new civilian clothes and sent back to the camp. And later on, I found out I was given 8 days of convalescence free. You don't have to go out to work for 8 days. How I found out, many years later, I asked the archives in Auschwitz camp whether they got anything about me, and they found it. They found anything. They sent it by post, and they said when I was admitted to the hospital, when I was the first one, typhus verdacht, typhus suspicion, and then I was discharged from the hospital on the 16th of January 1945. Is noted on it 8 days of Erholungsurlaub. But I never got the 8 days, because 2 days after I got out of the hospital, they said, we are moving, everybody are going to walk. Auschwitz is going to be evacuated, and all the prisoners has to walk towards the west inside Germany.
And when you were in Auschwitz, in the hospital, what happened when you were asked to give blood?
Oh, the hospital, when they one day the doctor said to me, you know, there's a request whether you want to give blood, because your blood has been tested and you had successfully fought off the illness, typhoid, so your blood can be used for German soldiers as a serum, as an antidote, yeah. Whether I'm willing to give. So I said to the doctor, well, give me a choice. They give me a choice. He said, yes, they gave me a choice, but I wouldn't advise you to refuse. So I said, okay, no, I don't refuse. I'm willing to give it. And they took blood from me, I think 100 milliliters blood, and they gave me extra rations, extra food for a few days, and I forgot about it. And then 2 weeks later, a German officer comes into the hospital, in the barrack, and reading my name, I said, what do you want from me, the German officer? He said, you were voluntarily giving blood to the German soldier. We are grateful for that. We are giving a long sausage as a present. Wonderful. It's a very interesting. You see, I had little incident in the camp where people were Germans, prisoners, they were quite decent. I mean, that's when coming to when after we went on this march, after a day, 24 hours of march, we left early morning, and by the next day I felt I can't walk any further. I was 7 weeks I was in hospital. I never done a day's walk. And I was just so. I was not in a fit state to walk. And they said people people who cannot walk, they should stand aside. Then I realized that this is the end. They are going to shoot everybody who cannot walk. They are going to shoot on the... But I said, I have got no choice. I fought until for survival. But if God wants I should die, I give myself up. But it didn't happen. They were those who stepped out and they couldn't walk any further. They were taken to a camp nearby, a small camp.
And it was Althammer.
It was Althammer. That was the name of the camp. I got all the later on. I got all the details from the archive from Auschwitz. And I just had to walk into that camp, but I couldn't walk. It was I hold myself that I shouldn't collapse, because I know if I collapse, I won't be able to get up. So I just stand there, and a German soldier said me, "Come," and he pushed me. In the last few hundred yards, he pushed me. He says, "Look, we are here already." This was a middle-aged German soldier who was not part of the SS, just an ordinary Wehrmacht. They couldn't spare the SS for accompanying the prisoners. He helped to save my life. So I got into that camp. I fallen asleep. On the way, before we left Auschwitz, we were given a whole loaf of bread, 1 kilo bread, and a tinned meat, and a blanket. The tinned meat and the blanket, I've dropped it already, but the bread I was holding under my arms. They didn't give us anything to carry it. We just had to hold it in my hand or under the arm. So when I got into the camp in Althammer, I laid down on the first bunk which was available, and I fall asleep, and I slept for 24 hours or more, I don't know. I woke up, I looked for my bread, disappeared. Somebody was very hungry, I might take it. And I was just waiting what's going to happen now. And then we were in the camp for a few days, and then the Germans ran into the camp and said, "Everybody out, everybody, we are going, and they're running, and they left very quickly, and they're coming back again. Everybody wants out." And I saw that they are really in a confusion, the Germans. I felt there is an opportunity here. I've decided I'm not going. That's it, enough. I climbed under the bunk, but it was a very low bunk. I just managed to squeeze into the corner, and I was waiting what's going to happen. I was waiting for 2-3 hours, all quiet. The Germans has moved away, and then I heard noises. The Russians are here, the Russian soldiers. And I didn't wait too long. The 3 Russian soldiers came into the barrack where we were in a white sheets, something, because it was snow, it was January, it was a camouflage. And they asked us, "Have you got any food for us?" The Russian soldiers are liberators, God bless them. They were hungry. They wanted food from us. I said, "Sorry, you got the wrong address. Try next door." Anyway, so that's what I was liberated, in the middle of January.
How did you feel when you were liberated?
I tell you something, it was not such a thing which I should feel it like a relief. Now we are. I realized it. I survived. I won't be taken. There's no more fear of gassing. No more fear of starvation. We'll have enough food somehow. But what I'm going to do in the world? Where I am? Who's going to be? My brother was also in the hospital. I didn't know that he survived or not. My brother was with me all the time, and I was just sort of a daze. I just don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, I went. So I survived. I stayed in Krakow, and I waited 4 months until they organized transport to go back to Hungary. My brother was liberated. Also, he was in hospital and was liberated, but our liberators, the Russians, got hold of him and they took him to Russia for a bit of further labor. And it took him 8 months before to get home. And though we settled happily in Hungary after the war, my 2 oldest brothers also returned from the labor camp, and my sister also returned. So out of the siblings, 5 of us survived, which was a very good average. But my brother, when he came back from Russia, he said, I don't want to stay in Hungary. Hungary, you think it's all right now? You could go, the business, everything is going to be like Russia. It's going to be communism, all the barbarian system. I don't want to stay in Hungary. So he got out of Hungary and he came to England. I said, no, what's wrong here? So for me, it took another 4 years until 1949 when I realized it. There is no future in communist Hungary. Then Hungary turned into a real Stalinistic state. Until then, it was quite all right.
Can you describe your feelings when you were liberated? Like, what did you feel? Because at the end of the day, you were liberated and you were free, but what was the world that you were now entering into?
The liberation itself, though it was my dream that I survived, but it was an anticlimax somehow. Because though two things, I'm a survivor, I will be able to tell everybody at home, if there will be still a home to go back to, what happened in Auschwitz. But it's no parents, the community which have been grown up, all disappeared. It doesn't exist here. What I'm going to do on my own in the world. So I wanted to survive, and I've survived, and I was very grateful to God that I let me among those who survived, and I got a duty on me to comply with this chesed, with this what God has given me. But where will I go? I don't know. I was just confused. In fact, I was more confused while I was in Auschwitz, and I had to survive. I had to fight for survival. I had a purpose. I want to survive. But once I realized it, that I survived it, so what? So what have I gained by surviving? I'm lost. I'm on my own in the whole world. No parents, nobody. I didn't know anybody of my siblings has survived at that stage. And I'm here in Poland. I stayed in Krakow in a temporary camp for the survivors. We were given food, and people, they were organizing transport to get, so according to the countries where they wanted to get home, to Romania, to France, to Hungary. So I was waiting for my brother because I knew that he was liberated, but he didn't turn up. So I didn't know what happened to him. So at the next transport to Hungary, I got on the train, and after a few days arrived back in Budapest.
Saba, how do you remember any of the redeeming moments that you experienced when you were in Auschwitz? Redeeming moments that showed the humanity of any of the guards?
Oh yes, I came across a number of times. I mentioned it, the German soldier who pushed me, who helped me to get in the last few hundred yards to that camp. There were also
in the hospital.
In the hospital that was they gave me the sausage. That's also inexplicable thing. Something cannot be explained, but that's how it was. And then also in the camp, the Russians, what they saved my life, the Russian soldiers, the Russian prisoners of war, who let me stay among them. And also once was a selection, and after the selection, we thought it's after the appeal, when they counted the people, and we thought it's over. You
were selected?
No, that was in between the selection.
So you hadn't been selected?
I think I have mentioned that point when I was picked out.
When?
On Yom Kippur.
So the second selection after Jewish New Year, and then the Day of Atonement, you were picked out? Yeah,
picked out after when I saved by the Russians that night, the Cornidary night, the night before, I was saved by the Russians. But the next day was an appeal, and there was people who broke out of the door of the locked barrack, and they dispersed in the camp, and there was missing in the number, and they picked up at random at the round call the next day. Needed 25 people, or 20 or 30 people to the missing, and I was standing there
to fill the numbers that had
to
gone
fill the
missing.
numbers which has escaped from the locked barrack, and I was standing on a brick. I looked taller, I shouldn't be noticeable, but it didn't help me. There was an assessment with a capo going wrong. As soon as he saw me, the capo pulled me out, and I said to the German officer, "I'm strong. I show my muscles. Look, I can work. My non-existent muscles. I flexed it, and capo gave a slap in my face. You shut up, you Schweinhund." That was their favorite expression. Schweinhund. It means a pig dog or something. That was and the German looked at me and said, "That's him. Leave him." So pushed me back, took somebody else. That was a very narrow escape. I haven't mentioned it before.
And that was the redeeming moment.
and then also, after the first selection, when Mengele, the lager doctor who was doing the selection at arrival and also doing the selection from the camp, he was not satisfied that there are still a lot of people who are not suitable for work. They are still in the camp. So he gone to the barrack and to see whether and the barrack eldest, the barrack leader, he said we saw the small boys come. Those who were still you thought they are going to be selected, but we know that he's a good man. He was a German political prisoner, and he told us, go inside the barrack and hide under the bunks. And he was there for 20 minutes, and then he came back and said, "No, you can get out." Because Mengele came in and just looked around as the people were standing in the south that there's no small people here, so he went off. So he saved our life. I was giving civilian clothes because before I gone into the hospital, we were wearing blue and white stripes, and in the winter, when I got out of the hospital, we were given civilian clothes, but in the back of the jacket was a window which was blue and white sewn in, but otherwise it was civilian clothes. And I found in the lining money from the lodge ghetto, Jewish, what the lodge ghetto, they were printed their own money. I wish I would put it away somewhere, and it would have been very interesting to know, but I haven't got it.
And Saba, to what do you attribute your survival to?
I cannot answer this for sure. All I done my most to survive. I didn't give it. I mean, some of the people in my age, they knew the terrible misery and the loss. What they knew that they lost their parents. They lost their will to live, and they haven't fought when we were taken to the gas chamber. But I said, there should be some survivors, and I will be among them. And I always had somehow a faith in God that He will let me survive, because I knew that there will be survivors, and I will be among them. And that's I'm very thankful to Him that I survived and established a family. I got now, I mean, looking back for 72 years ago, I got now children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I established a family, and my brothers who are unfortunately passed on since, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, we can measure a descendants of the 5 siblings into hundreds. I don't know the number exactly, but it must be between 300 and 400.
And next week you're going to be 86.
Oh, that's another thing. I don't have to do anything to it just not to die, then we come automatically. You get another birthday clocked up.
And Saba, how do you think this experience has affected your religious beliefs?
Well, it's again not a clear answer. So I'm trying to be I'm trying to be thankful to God, but on the other hand, I got a claim. But why it happened? Why? What have they done? All those friends of mine who were together with me, they just killed my younger brother, my parents. Why they were bad and I was a good one? So I said sometimes I cannot be clear about in God's ways, but there is no other way. If you are not believe that life is not worth living. So I'm a strong believer in my religion, in my God, and bring up the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren the same way, because this is the only way we can exist.
Mm-hmm. And Saba, I want to ask another question. Do you feel that we've learned our lesson, and do you feel that there are any messages that you would like the future generations to get, especially from projects?
Look here. It's always the same. What happened in Nazism, it can happen again. I mean, it happened in a smaller scale before the Nazis and in our time. That people comes a demagogue, somebody who just got a good talk, and trying to say to the people, look, you know why are we in such a misery? Because of the Tutsis, because of them. They are our enemies. You have to kill them, then it will be all right. I mean, it goes all over the world, especially in the third countries. Every day you see in the papers killing and murder and things like that. And even before Hitler, what happened to the Armenians in Turkey? They're also blamed for Turkey, so they were killed about 1.5 million. And afterwards, what happened in Bosnia? Also, people were killed for their belonging to. They are different because they are not Serbs. They are Muslims. And many places. I don't have to bring many examples. You can see the papers everywhere. They're killing all kind of organization. The jihadists who are killing on the name of God, the name of Allah. They have to kill people. So it looks like this is a human nature, especially the primitive people, that if you kill your enemies, then you are better off. And this can happen. So you have to believe in enlightenment and of the people that we are all the same people, whatever our color of skin, whatever our religion. We just have to work together in tolerance, even if we are different from each other. This is the lessons.
Why is Project Generation to Generation important? Why does it matter to you?
It was all my intention when I was in the camp. I was also thought of it. If I'm going to survive, how would people believe what happened? This is something which people has to know and should remember it. They should know that such a thing or anything similar to that, it should not happen again. We should also remember those people who cannot speak, who were the victims of this madness, of this terrible crime, who are not here. They were killed before as children, babies, all the people, everybody. It should be a memorial and a remembrance for them. You see, we survivors are lucky. I have survived. I got married. That was also my intention in the camp. I don't want I should be in the last in the family. There was no more. I came from a very, very important, and I'm very proud of my ancestors who I discovered them after the war, where they were buried. And I'm very grateful for God that not only I survived, but I managed to meet such a wonderful girl like my late wife, who had 56 happy years with her. And we have managed to attend not only the marriage of our children, but most of our grandchildren. And it's for her memory as well. She survived in Budapest in the ghetto, and we met after the war in Israel, and we got married. And I'm grateful to God and to everybody else who was helping me to put up this wonderful family, wonderful children, grandchildren. I'm very, very grateful for that.